Hello, everybody. This is Mike Hersh, and we're also going to have Myla Reason co-hosting with me today. Harvey Sluggo Wasserman is in transit, so we will be filling in for him. This is the 246th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Environmental Protection um, Zoom show. Thank you for joining us. We have an action-packed, interesting, provocative agenda for everybody today. We're going to be talking about the recent election results. We're going to be talking about a handful of Democrats caving in the Senate. We're going to be talking about how to plan for the midterms that have started as soon as the off-year elections ended. We are going to be hearing from experts on a wide range of fields of study and research. We're going to be hearing from a candidate for U.S. Senate. We're going to be hearing from some of our old friends, including Jerry Ashton, who is going to be helping us honor our veterans the day before Veterans Day Eve, and how we can help the veterans who are in so much peril these days. We're going to be hearing from our good friends, Andrea Miller and Ray McClendon, on their takeaways from the elections. They were both very much involved. Ray in Georgia, Andrea in Virginia, and Myla Reason is going to engage with um, Ray on the Public Services Commission victories by some Democrats. And Myla has done some excellent research into the people who won and what that means for people in Georgia and all around the country. We're going to lead off with our good friend Mimi Gurman, who is going to bring us another brand new original poem. And then we're going to shift over to our new friend, Jenny Gage, who's been generous enough to spend time with us. She's very busy and she's making a lot of waves in the refugee from the Trump cult movement and the refugees from Latter-day Saints movements. She's helped found both of those movements, and we're going to be hearing from her. And she brought a friend of hers with her, Chris Volpe, who is an announced candidate for the United States Senate from the great state of Ohio. So we are going to jump in really quickly. Myla, did I forget anything?
If you did, I forgot it too.
There you go. A lot of amnesia going around. So what we're going to do right now is introduce our good friend Mimi Gurman to give us a wonderful poem. Thank you, Mimi. And we know that you might not be able to stay with us the whole time, so we'll appreciate you while you're here.
Thank you. Let me pull up my poem for today. And before I read my poem, I'm going to put something in the chat about a documentary that I saw. I believe it's called In Waves, Not War. I saw it last night. And I think that in honor of veterans and all that they have gone through, they deserve um, they deserve our attention in this documentary on ways to deal with PTSD. That's it. I'll put it in the chat in a little bit. And this is my latest poem, and it's called Searching for Salvation. We took the chisel to the dream, landing hard in a dumpster behind the local Walmart, searching in the rubbish for salvation and a meal. Upon the church steps, the starving curl, legs twitching beneath the fog of cold. Holy blankets adorn the naked strife. A rat picks at the base of locked doors. Lonely is the odor. Reality bends like a bow until it snaps. The dirge of the daily arriving with handcuffs. Hunger not for a flag before humanity rings a faraway bell. Seeping from the cracks of a calloused kitchen window, a cardamom pod loses its shell. Its seeds drop into the mortar, then, ground by the pestle, a scent, fearless in the clamor of chaos, rises, stretching its fingers like lost lakes over hardened stone wearing thin, the thunder of terror that ricochets over potholes toward the graying grates of city gutters. And in its wake of sutured souls, a child revels in the bravery of the sun as she walks toward the moon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mimi. And I'd like to get underway. So, Mimi, you were generous enough to um, offer to introduce Jenny. So, we are going to have you do that, and then we'll have Jenny introduce Chris.
Great. This is such an honor. Jenny Gage. Well, I do have the honor of reintroducing an incredible woman, most often known as the woman who left the Mormon church and then left the MAGA cult. But we know her as the woman who has created a path in her new life, dedicated to helping others learn and reimagine empathy, courage, and love via her denim revolution, something we've touched on here at Greep. The many facets of this brilliant woman shine brighter than the brightest diamond, and we are grateful to have her on our Zoom whenever she has time in her schedule to visit with us. You can find her on YouTube at Life Take Two, and I strongly encourage everyone to check out her videos. I'm sure Steve will put up Jenny's links in the chat. Jenny, welcome back. You have a guest to introduce to us today, so you go right ahead.
Mimi, I didn't know I was going to get this royal red carpet today. I've forgotten that was so absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And just once again, this is my favorite thing that I do. Of any podcast, any radio show, my own platform. When I invited Chris on today, I told him this is the best group of people that you'll ever hang out with. And I don't say that about anybody else. So I'm just always so impressed by the purpose and passion of every individual in this group. So, Mimi, I'm going to save this recording and share it with all of my followers and like listen to it late at night. Chris, here's the great introduction that I have for you. Here's Chris Volpe. Chris is a remarkable individual. He's from Columbus, Ohio. And I have so many people that reach out to me who are running for Senate or are politicians and different positions from city council to, senators across the country, as I've been asking people to reach out to me to be on my podcast. And Chris was one a couple months ago that reached out. And after our initial conversation, I was so impressed with this man who is running a successful business, living a happy life, not having to worry about everything out there in the world and other people's opinions about him or trying to raise money and do anything extraordinary. And as he sat back and watched the future of our country being altered in ways that he didn't think were positive and beneficial, Chris decided to sacrifice his happy life to put his hat in the race for J.D. Vance's vacated Senate seat, which is a special election that's coming up this next year. So he's smart, he's savvy, and to me, he's really representative of everything that I talk about in the denim revolution, which is the American citizens becoming engaged in politics once again. And when I talk about that, I usually mean, go to a couple school board meetings, find some groups you can participate in, volunteer on some local campaigns. But Chris really took it next level by actually running for office. So
here I am, I guess. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, so first of all, I gotta get my cats need some attention.
The cat is Pumpkin, and the cat
Pumpkin.
is always part of our everything we do.
Yeah, she has a tendency to make an appearance, but my dog's on my lap here too, baby. But yeah, thanks for having me. I am running for U.S. Senate in the 2026 special election. I'm excited to be here, and ultimately, I wanted to be able to look back in 10 years and know that I did everything I could to make this country better and to fight for people. And I just did not like the way that things were going. This is back in February, and tomorrow, interestingly, is Veterans Day. And I sort of have this thing where I just think we all deserve better than what is happening right now. And if we think about the veterans and Veterans Day, like that loss and sacrifice deserves better than what we are doing right now. So excited to be here. Happy to talk about whatever you'd like. Seems like a really fun group.
So, so glad to have you here, Chris. I have a few questions. Right now it looks like and it looks like Jerry Ashton would like to join us too to talk about veterans. Probably has a follow-up with you, but I was wondering if you could comment if you were in the Senate today. I think you're aware of what's happening with the what I think of as the capitulation. You might think of it as a compromise, but it looks like the result of what's going on in the Senate today might result in millions of Americans losing their health care. And I'm wondering if you can talk about your take on what's going on right now in terms of what's going on in the Senate.
Sure. That's a large question. Obviously, there's a lot going on. But I think the question you're asking me is really, would I have capitulated in this way that we're seeing? I think we're at 8 Democrats right now that have agreed to vote along lines to reopen the government, which I think is a little bit of a misnomer in a way, because we could have reopened the government at day one if we were actually able to formulate an actual plan to help people. But we're kind of stuck in this position. And I actually just did a video about this before we logged on. I'm just extremely disappointed in our leadership. You mentioned compromise. I mean, I don't know how this is a compromise. I mean, what are you getting? The healthcare subsidies that you mentioned are going to be, I mean, absolutely devastating. And here in Ohio, we have a lot of rural hospitals that are already fighting through the big beautiful bill and trying to navigate that nonsense. Um, I'm so disappointed in our leadership. I just can't believe. I guess I should, as a Democratic voter for most of my life here, I should be used to this by now. But it's just like we were riding high last week on the elections, and it's like 6 days later we're back talking about a failure of leadership. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running. Like when I chose to run in February, it was because I was looking around. I was like, nobody's doing anything. And I told my team day one that if somebody comes up that's an expiring candidate that I think is going to be a really strong leader, I will step out immediately, endorse that person, and tell all my followers to vote for them. And I'm just not seeing it. So I decided to step up and see if I can do my part in making this country better and getting us out of this situation.
No, let me
Mike,
just
or,
follow up.
oh, sorry,
Jen,
Mike.
I just want to follow up and say you don't see the leadership, and I'm wondering, Sherrod Brown also announced that he is running for that position, and
Hmm.
you don't have confidence in him as a leader. Is that what you're saying?
I think that Sherrod Brown's done a lot of great stuff for Ohio, but I do not think that he is the leader that we need right now. I do not think that um, there's a time and a place for certain types of leaders, and I just don't think he is the one that Ohio needs, and I don't think he's the one that America needs right now. And I'm happy to talk about the reasons why.
Well, could you
And
just
Sherrod lost the last election, correct?
Correct. I think that
put those reasons? That would be great.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of just practical ones. Like, for example, I think that most of our leadership in Washington just has very little understanding of the economy, of like actually living in the economy that exists right now. I'm 44. I'm a first year millennial. I live every day in this economy. I work paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to be, 3 days away from paying rent and have 2 cents in your bank account. When's the last time Sherrod Brown or a Republican candidate John Husted have had to worry about paying for rent or covering the cost of groceries? So I think that there's a sort of an experience right now that folks just aren't having, and particularly painting a broad brush here, particularly older folks that just grew up in a completely different world, a completely different economy. Like it just doesn't function the same, and you have to take that into account. But then there's also just like simple stuff. Like spent the past 20 years helping people, building communities, building industries. I've started my own business. I've helped hundreds of businesses grow. So I know the trials and tribulations of getting a business started. I've been a teacher for over a decade. I've seen the students come and go, particularly through COVID, and the impact that that's had on younger folks. I'm an artist. I'm a creative. I come at solutions in very unique ways. I'm a systems thinker. And so I just think my experience right now for what this moment calls for is going to be more helpful in the long run than what Sherrod Brown would be in a position to do. And I always kind of joke, because people ask me, it's like, well, you're running against Sherrod Brown. I was like, well, I was first in the race, so technically he's running against me. But
So I just have one follow-up and then I'll open it
Sure.
up. I just want to say, of course, we'll have Sharon on as well. We'd love to have him on to talk to. But it's, and I've got a lot of background noise going on. There's some machinery behind me or just stopped. At any rate, he has championed quite a lot of legislation for housing. He's been pretty good on that issue. And have you looked at that at all? His history in terms of providing for housing for unhoused people and affordable housing. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
one of the
I've
issues.
looked. I wouldn't say I'm a Sherrod Brown expert, but I've definitely looked at his past policies and his activities. Particularly, I was going through grad school in public health when the ACA was being talked about, so I was very deep into sort of the policy aspects of that. And again, I want to say, like, I don't have anything against Sherrod Brown. Like, I don't think this is like he's the bad guy, I'm the good guy kind of situation. We're all on the same team here, and I think we should be working together. But I do think we're in a new economy and we're in a new political landscape that requires new folks. And I think people like Sherrod Brown should be stepping up to mentor new voices into the Democratic Party. And I'll tell you right now, the impression that I get and a lot of other folks get, I talk to a lot of potential candidates. The impression that I get from established Democrats is they do not want us. And I think that is a shame.
Let's let Carlos, I think Jenny, you were trying to get a word in a little while ago. So why don't you go ahead and then we'll hear from Carla Sand, who's got her virtual hand raised.
All right. Well, Chris and I were just talking before we came on about the election results that Mike invited us to kind of come on and dialogue about what it means, reading the tea leaves and what is behind the elections this past week. And we decided that if we were going to give a title to the election results, it would be a passing of the baton, how the election indicates that America is ready for change. And I think that there have certainly been times in the past where the status quo was working for most Americans. And if somebody new had come along, like Mamdani, nobody would have voted for them because everything was just perking along just fine. But currently, and really for a good amount of time, everything hasn't been okay for most people. And because of that, we are ready for change in ways that I don't think that we ever have been before. It was fascinating to see the percentages in some of the races and see some of the flips. And Mamdani himself, just the campaign that he ran, he was on PBS the day after the election, and some of his campaign people went through numbers like the 8,000 volunteers that he had door knocking, the millions and millions of homes and different people that were reached, and just the sheer number of citizens that are so hungry for change that some of these volunteers, he was saying some of the canvassers and the door knockers, once a week, they worked a shift. There was 4 to 8 hours a day where they went door to door and knocked on doors. This, to me, more than even just the result of the election, shows that Americans are hungry for change. So I do think, like Chris says, and this is why I'm volunteering on Chris's campaign. I'm not getting paid. And this is just one little thing. It's part of my denim revolution, right? My denim revolution is get to know people who are, have campaigns and volunteer, donate for those people that I believe in. So I chose Chris. He didn't choose me, and he can't get rid of me now. But one of the reasons why I think that Chris and other people like him are the future of America is that we are hungry for change, and we have gotten into a habit, and no ageism intended. I know that I'm on a panel of incredible people, but sometimes we get stuck with these leaders who don't understand the fresh new frontiers that we're stepping into. And we think that they're the only ones that can lead, when in reality, the average age of most American presidents was somewhere between 46 and 58 until we got to like Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And now we're in this habit of having these older politicians who, in some ways, don't represent the future. So I certainly agree with Chris that it may be time for some of these politicians to step back. You know, Nancy Pelosi, I hope that she mentors and is there for the new generation of politicians. But I think that as Americans, we are all hungry for change. We're ready to pass that baton to somebody new who represents us and not just the people at the top.
Yeah, totally.
Carla, do you have a question for our guests?
A question and a statement, actually. I was I'm a member of PDA Disabilities Community, and I was surprised to hear you say that you would step aside if someone else could take over, that you were supportive. And I see that in Sherrod Brown at this point, simply because he was such a supporter of the disabilities community. And so I hear a lot of talk about, oh, we want to get in and change this and change that. And just listening to me, you know that I'm pretty old and I've been through this before. And we saw a lot of people come out at the last Trump election, and then we didn't see them anymore. And now we're seeing them again. And so I'm thinking Sherrod Brown, tell me if how wrong I am, would be a consistent leader on some of the issues that I care about, and one of them is disabilities. So I don't know where exactly you're coming from, as opposed to picking someone like Sherrod Brown, who was around before and did some good.
Yeah, so you cut out there for a second, but again, I don't have anything against Sherrod Brown. I don't think we need to look back and tarnish the good things that he has done for the state of Ohio and the fight that he's had. But I also think that there is real problems that are happening right now that I personally do not have faith that Sherrod Brown is going to be a really strong leader. And like, I feel you on disabilities thing. My background, well, one of my backgrounds is healthcare. I've been very active in trying to help provide more opportunities and more support for those with physical and mental disabilities. That's something I worked on when I was in my healthcare days. And I think it's a shame what's going on with the cuts to, I was going to say, disability funding programs. At this point, it's like every funding program that is being done by the administration. I mean, it's going to take us decades to get back to some semblance of the kind of support that existed before. And I think that's a shame. I think the question around Sherrod Brown is almost kind of like in two things. And I watch a lot of Sherrod Brown content, as you can imagine. And two things. One is I'm not really sure what his vision for the future is. He keeps talking about helping workers and working families, and like that sounds good, but like what does the world that I am going to live in, because I'm 44, what is 20 years from now going to look like? What world am I going to be looking in? And I can't give you an answer from him. And then on top of that, I think what's tends to happen on the Democrat side, and I've seen this over and over and over again, is that when we get scared, we try to go with the option we think is going to be the most likely to win, which is also generally the safest option, which historically has also been the option that loses. And so I think that
Joe Biden, classic example. Sorry to interrupt, Chris. I felt like he was a safe option. He was the incumbent, and
yeah,
he was safe.
And so again, I attempt to I'm attempting to say that I am here to work on building a future that I want to live in for the next 30 years. But I am not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I do not have a desire to be in Washington for the next 30 years until I'm 70. I feel that I have a skill set and abilities and a network that can be very, very helpful for what the world can look at right now. And to Jenny's point, we have an opportunity here to do some things that just wasn't possible maybe 10 or 15 years ago, like really meaningful change. And one of the things that I think Sherrod Brown has consistently said that a lot of younger people are just kind of rolling their eyes at, not specifically him, but just the sentiment in general. It's just like this idea that we have to keep moving towards progress in this slow, steady way, and that's somehow pragmatic. And frankly, I'm really, really sick of seeing people use a lack of vision being covered up by the word pragmatism. And there's a lot of other people that are like me that have been watching these things. So universal healthcare is a big, I see a thing here, some issues. Universal healthcare is a really big issue for me. I'm 44. We have been talking about universal healthcare since I was born. The only meaningful movement we had towards it was the ACA, in which the Democrats ended up undercutting themselves and removing both universal health care, Medicare for all, and a public option, and gave us what we ended up, which is in essence a series of health insurance reforms. And we haven't seen anything in 15 years. Like Obama was in charge for many years, Biden was in charge for the last 4 years, and it's just there's a frustration among young people. Jenny kind of hit on this, that there's a social contract that older individuals give to younger individuals. And that social contract is that if you work hard and you do these things, you will be rewarded. No one's asking for a mansion on every corner, right? We just want to have a consistent, stable life. We want to be able to raise a family. We want to be able to maybe take a vacation here or there. And we want to not have the weight of the world on our shoulders all the time. And that social contract is broken. And again, I'm a first year millennial. We are not the ones that broke that contract. Unfortunately, it is an older generation of leaders in Washington who broke that contract. And so people like my age and under, we do not view politics, I think, in the same way that a lot of older folks do, where we don't buy it anymore. We're not buying the nonsense.
So
And
Chris,
so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Myla's going to get in, and then after Myla, if
maybe-
I could say something too.
sure. Chris, I'm wondering if you can just give us some specifics about what that future looks like that you're trying to build. And what kind of programs will you advocate for? It sounds like from what you said that you do support Medicare for all. I know Mimi also has had her hand up and she'd like to ask a question. So I'm going to now defer to both Mimi and Mike, and I'm going to let them proceed from here.
Yeah, real quick, I'm wearing a t-shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but it refers to the climate emergency. We were on Capitol Hill knocking on senators and congresspeople's doors and asking them to sign on to an emergency declaration. It didn't have any specific legislative impact, but it would put Congress on record recognizing that we were in a climate emergency. And we went to talk to Sherrod Brown's people, and they said, well, we agree with you, but Ohio's a tough state, and we're concerned that we could lose our seat if we led on this issue. And I think that's
And he lost the
exactly
seat anyway.
well, see, exactly. I think that's the exact wrong way of looking at things. And I do think that a lot of voters may feel very strongly one way or the other. I think that if you are a climate denier, you're wrong, but people are entitled to be wrong. But I
Sure.
do think voters respect people who stand for something, believe in something, articulate it strongly. And even if it's something that they might not agree with, they see character and leadership there. And I think, I've supported Sherrod Brown every time he ran, all the way back from when he ran for the House and then changed his mind, and then somebody else got in, and then he got back in. I
Me as well.
tried to explain to people that he's good on the policies, he understands the policies, but I do feel that he needs to be challenged, and maybe having lost, he'll come back with a little bit more fire in the belly. But we're seeing again and again a crisis of leadership where the Republicans are very bold and outrageous in their leadership. And you see Republican supporters walking around with smiles on their face because they know that the people that they elect are going to go in and fight for them and maybe do a lot of dumb things and move fast and break things. But we can't have Democrats who are pretending that this is business as usual or that we can just get along and compromise with extremism. So I
Sure.
do think that we, if Sherrod Brown is willing to provide that leadership, that would be one thing. But I think that before you're right or wrong on the issues, you have to get right with the voters and you have to show some courage. We don't need any more cowardly lions up there. We
Totally.
need some people with some guts and some courage. And I do think that that comes from having skin in the game. And a lot of the members of Congress have been up there for so long. They're out of touch when it comes to Gaza. They're out of touch when it comes to um, the need for Medicare for all and for a living wage. I don't see a sense of urgency that we need to see that I see from people walking around in the streets, and we want more. So Mimi, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can I jump in just real fast? Because
Of
you
course,
shotgunned
yeah.
a bunch of stuff at me, and I don't know if I can take a second person, so my brain might explode. Just give me a sec. So just real fast, a little anecdotal story. I was listening to a podcast today that had Jessica Tarlov on it from the Fox show. And one of the things she mentioned is, and I don't remember if she said who she was talking to, but it was about the government shutdown. And she was talking with her colleague, over the past couple of weeks. And in essence, her colleague is like, we don't care because we know you're going to cave. Like, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter how long it goes, because eventually the Democrats will cave. And lo and behold, here we are. Right. So it's impossible to have any negotiating leverage when you're just always known as the guy that's going to cave. It's sort of similar to what was happening with the kind of taco thing and Trump for a little bit. But I agree with you. I do not think we are in a political world of policy. Nobody cares about your 12-point plan for healthcare. They want to know that you're going to be able to go on the floor and that you've got their back. So one of the things that I tell people, and I talk to a lot of MAGA Republicans and conservative folks, as I'm like, look, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm not even trying to convince you to vote for me. What I am asking you to do is to see if you can trust me. Trust that I'm going to have your back, even though we're not going to see things the same way. And you may not agree with me on everything, that when I go there, that I am going to try to do my best to make your life and your family's life easier. And if you can do that, I think we can do some amazing things together. And if for whatever reason you can't, so be it. And I share your sentiment for, like, the climate change, for example. I totally agree with you. I think it is an existential crisis. I think we just went in Ohio. We just went from like a 70-degree day to snow. And we see these wild things, and the wind lately has been insane. Like, we're seeing all these things. And one of the things I talk about climate change is like, okay, let's just pretend that you're right and climate change is not man-made. It's not. That's not true. But let's just, for the sake of this argument, pretend that it is true. We still know that all of the gases that contribute to climate change also cause asthma, emphysema, heart disease, lung cancer, throat cancer, mouth cancer. So like, even if we didn't care about the climate change portion of it, we still know that these have extreme health effects that we should be thinking about. So I think moving towards green energy, and that's not even counting the economic argument of just getting us off oil so that we can't be, put over a barrel the next time OPEC decides to do something crazy, right? So I think all of those things are super important. And ultimately, they all wrap into, I think, one very simple package, which is, can we create a society that's going to take care of and invest in people in an aligned way so that everybody has the chance to live the life that they want in a meaningful way? They have the chance for upward financial mobility, and they can just do the thing that they want to do for their lives. Our life is special and important, and we shouldn't be wasting it on stupid stuff. One of my friends he found out he's got stage 4 kidney cancer, which is a disease you typically get in your mid to late 60s. He's 46, just dropped on him like a bomb. And I'm watching him navigate this healthcare system, and it is a disaster, and it is cruel. It is a ghastly system, what we ask these people to do. And I think it's a shame. And I don't want to be having the same conversation 20 years down the road. I'm sure you all saw that the Trump administration cut that $500 million in mRNA vaccines. There was an article last week where they're like, I think we might have developed an mRNA vaccine that can kill cancer. Like we are like this close to potentially removing cancer from something that we have to worry about in a meaningful way. And yet we are spending time, effort on all of this nonsense. And these have real life impacts on people.
Well, thanks for that, Chris. And Mike as well, because what I wanted to share was my feeling about everything right now is that if anyone is running for a political position who is over the age of 60 is not in tune with what is really going on because they no longer have the emergency that they're living with. Sure, maybe they have kids, maybe they have grandkids. It's still different. It's exactly like the six Democratic senators who don't have anything to lose by voting for God knows what reason, yes, to ending the shutdown. They have nothing to lose. People over 60 do not have anything to lose, who are running, I mean. And that's my take on it. And I get that that's my personal take on it.
Sure.
The people who have everything to lose is who we who are over 60, what we have given to you, Chris, to you, Jenny, as a world on fire. You have everything to lose. You have to choose whether or not you can have a child for the reason of financial reasons or environmental reasons. And that's because we never fix the problems. And we, meaning everybody who's a politician who's older. And it's done over it. I'm like, if you've got a brain like Chris does, and can formulate a plan. And
I think you hit it on the head. I think you hit it on the head real fast. Sorry to interrupt. I think you hit it at the head is that, and this goes back to the social contract thing, is people are willing to let stuff slide when they feel like they're safe and secure and their family is being taken care of. But that's not happening right now. So I had a conversation with an establishment Democrat a couple of days ago. And I was like, it would be one thing to like kind of have to stomach this like nonsense loser mentality on the Democratic leadership if they were actually getting things done, but they're not. So what are we paying for here, right? And it's just getting really, really frustrating for young folks like us. And you mentioned, people running for Senate in particular is not an easy or cheap thing. Like I've put thousands of dollars, my own money in it. I'm spending a ton of time. I've got my own life, my own job. Like these are busy things. And so I can see why the system just sort of navigates towards people who are able to afford it, both financially and time-wise. But those are also the people that are most of the time disconnected from the reality of everyday world experience.
And Chris, if I can just talk about one of Mimi's points really quick, about the affordability of kids, this is where like the older generation has so much wisdom, they have so much experience. We don't want them to fade in the background, but I had to plan for every single child that I had. My grandparents didn't. And my children, they know exactly at what point they can afford the next baby. Like they have to do the math on it because truly, when my grandparents were raising kids in the 50s and 60s, they got a job. My granddad got a job. My grandma stayed at home. Affordability and making sure that you're not over capacity in the amount of kids you can have, that wasn't something that anybody talked about. My grandparents weren't limited to one. They had 5. So just a little factor like that, if you haven't lived in today's environment with the childcare and healthcare and all of the other challenges that young families face, then you don't truly understand how the world has changed.
I think that
right. Let me just say one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
One sec. Chris, the other thing too is that the social contract is the social contract that you were referring to a couple of times now, that politicians who are still in there, who shouldn't be in there anymore, that is their social contract, that we're supposed to have all of these ways of living our lives. However, the social contract that I'm looking for is a contract between who I vote for and what I want.
Sure.
That is the contract that I'm looking for. It has nothing to do with the other contract anymore. Because if I'm
Sure.
voting for you, I know that you're going to set up your vote at least for affordable health care, affordable rent, and so on and so on. So
Hmm.
that's part of the contract. I don't have to worry that that I have to say to you or write you an email saying, where's your spine? Because of your age, because of who you are and how you're living right now, you already have the spine. And that is just another difference to me, with the reason for really looking into people who are younger and running and moving out, everybody who has been in there for far too long.
I
Stop
appreciate
now.
that, Mimi. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think again, this was mentioned maybe 15 minutes ago, talking about the Democratic Party would, I think, just at a minimum, have a lot of value of having more voices in the mix. Like, if I'll be blunt, if we do a debate and Sherrod Brown can't handle little old me, like he ain't going to be able to win against John Husted, right? So let's get us into a room and put us on a debate stage and see what kind of ideas we can really be fostering. Because it does really bother me that the the Democrats, the folks on the left, whatever you want to call, we're supposedly the ones with the much better policies and the much better values. Then why are we never fighting for them? Why are we always on the defense?
I just want to say really, really quickly that um, certain demographics are far too overrepresented in the Senate and in the House. We've got too many people who are of the older generation, my generation and older. We've got too many white males. And this is a country where a whole lot of people have a whole lot of different interests. Now, just because somebody's young doesn't mean that they'd be a great person. There are a bunch of young people on the internet who are right wing, even Nazis, like Nick Fuentes is younger than a lot
Yeah.
of the people in the Senate, but that doesn't mean we are looking to get him in there. So, and that said, we don't want Bernie Sanders to go off and, take up knitting or something. We like him out there doing what he's doing because he's inspiring younger people like Mom Donnie, like AOC, like a whole bunch of people on this Zoom. Um, so I think that we have to be a little bit diplomatic, and well, you don't have to. You're saying do whatever you want. But
Yeah, sure.
what I'm saying is, if we had like a Senate packed with Bernies and they were all old but understood it, if they got it, that would be one thing. The probability of somebody Bernie's age getting it is very, very rare. That's why Bernie is so rare. And
Yeah.
we do, let me wrap up real quick. We fundamentally do need to have different voices at the table. We need a lot more women. We need a lot more people of color. We
Agreed.
need a lot more younger people. We need a lot more working people. We don't have really anybody, like Fetterman was supposed to be the working man's hero, and he's kind of drifted off into the Wall Street camp, and it's very disappointing. So this is all I'm trying to say is that everybody's welcome, but we need to be welcoming to other people who don't all look like, old white dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think when we sort of say we need new younger voices in, really that is uh it's sort of a framing of we need folks who understand the day-to-day world of normal working people. And so maybe not, I think we've used age as like a simplifier for that sentiment, but yeah, I totally agree that it's not necessarily about age. But I also will say, as kind of again, I talk to a lot of people, and one of the things I've noticed is, for some reason, I don't know if it's because I'm younger than them and they're just like, I'm not going to listen to the kids anymore or whatever, but some folks just have a really hard time reconciling the world that exists today compared to the world that exists when they were growing up. And realizing that it's just the fundamentals are not the same. It's not about not drinking your $5 lattes or going to a public school anymore. Like it's just a different world.
It's beyond that.
No, that's absolutely true. A friend of mine who's older even than me, if you can believe it, was our county executive, and he's a terrific guy. But he said something like, "I don't understand this free tuition thing." I worked at a grocery store, put myself through college. And I said,
Hmm.
but dude, that was like a long time ago.
Yeah. Can
You
I
know,
tell you a little
you,
story
yeah,
about that?
please go ahead, Chris.
So I had this conversation with my dad maybe a decade ago, and we were talking about it because my dad is a doctor. He went to OSU, Ohio State, same place I did, but he was going in the early '80s, like late '70s to early '80s. I was born in '81, and we were talking about it. I was like, "Did you know in 1981 you could go to a public university, work full time in the summer, part time during breaks. You could cover your tuition, room and board, and have some money left over. You'd make it out with like $7,000 extra money. If you did that today, the same exact thing, you would be in the hole close to 20 grand. So that's a delta of $27,000 for doing the same thing. But here's the kicker is that I don't think a lot of older people understand this as well, because I hear people ripping on, well, first it was millennials and then became Gen Z, and it just always goes down the track, right? But um, if you look at millennials and Gen Z, they are on paper far better than anyone in Gen X and the baby boomers was. They have higher graduation rates from high school, higher graduation rates from college, higher rates of volunteerism, higher rates of extracurricular activities, higher rates of sports, higher rates of military involvement. So not only does the economics not work out for them, they're actually doing way more during the week. And I think any younger parents know, just imagine like how active your kids and your grandkids are in sports and stuff, because it's a
Oh yeah.
requirement now
We
to,
have quite a few people, Chris, sorry to cut you off.
oh, sorry.
We have quite a few people who are wanting to ask you a question, starting with Steve Caruso, and then we have Dr. Nancy and Karen Lago and Lynn Feinerman. So let's see if we can fit all of their questions in, because Jerry Ashton is going to be coming on in the next few minutes after we wrap up to talk about veterans' medical debt. So Steve, why don't
Yeah,
you?
I went through that, put myself through college, got a minor degree. Family was medically oriented. Father was a doctor. I think the cutting of the funding of the research, we're on the tip of taking our DNA and ripping it to shreds with this CRISPR program. And mRNA might be a good thing, okay? And maybe it needs to be refined, but it still needs to be researched. So, when they cut that funding, they're killing progress. And that's the point I wanted to make. Thanks.
Hmm?
So shall we move on to a question from
Yes. Dr.
from
Nancy?
Nancy? And by the way, there were a couple of questions that I had that you didn't answer. One, quickly, do you support Medicare for all and a living wage?
Yeah,
And
Myla, he did
He
respond in the
said
chat.
so.
oh, I'm sorry, I
I can
missed.
just quickly do it for folks who don't. Yeah, like I'm a big fan of either Medicare for All or another universal healthcare program that works. I think Medicare for All is probably the simplest solution given where we are right now. But there's other ways to do it, as long as we're doing universal healthcare coverage and we're using a leverage system like a single payer to make sure we're keeping costs down. And I
And
forget
again, really
what
important
was
to
the other
Chris because your
question.
background, your master's degree is in health.
Yeah, I
What's
have a
your master's
master's
in?
degree in public health and a master's degree in health administration.
So this is actually Chris's background, and from past conversations that we've had, this is one of the reasons why Chris threw his hat in the race, because of healthcare. So this is one of the big things that kept him up at night. That is something that he's going to fight for.
Great, and Vina Colley has also entered the stack, and she would be one of your constituents, and we really want to hear from her. So let's quickly get through the queue here and
Yeah,
start.
everybody, please, we're sorry we went on so long, but if you could quickly get to your question and then mute yourself so we can get the answer. Dr. Nancy, speaking of people who know a lot about healthcare,
Yeah,
go ahead.
thank you. And I appreciate everything you said, Chris. Great, more power to you. I want you to know that the Democratic Party that I grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s is exactly what Bernie Sanders says. It changed in the 80s. So I'm sorry you're growing up with that. But I don't know if you know what Wiser is, but this is a current issue. Do you know about Wiser?
I'm not as informed on it, but yeah, I know some of it.
Just briefly, traditional Medicare is the closest to single payer that Americans have, but less than close to 50% of seniors sign up for traditional Medicare. The other half is owned by the private insurance companies, and they call it Medicare Disadvantage. As of January 1st, there is a program that's going to take the traditional Medicare and instill AI to start doing denials for care. And there's been a motion passed in the House of Representatives to defund it, but it's a real active thing. And Ohio is one of the 6 states, and you're going to have half your seniors shocked as of January 1st if this happens. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that at all. There was actually an MIT research study that just came out maybe a month ago that showed 95% of these AI pilot programs in the corporate world are just absolute failures. So in no world am I going to let a new technology like this be in charge of deciding who gets care and who doesn't.
Thank you. Can we hear from Karen?
Yeah, I want to tell you, a week or so ago, somebody quoted Abby Hoffman saying, don't trust anybody under 30. And he did say that. But when he was older, he said, don't trust anybody over 30. So it's
over
perspective.
30. Okay.
He changed it when he got older because he was still trying to change things, and he didn't see the younger people as coming on board as much as the older people. So I find it very frustrating the way you dismiss older people. I'm pretty up to date. I'm 75, but I keep up to speed. And I think you will lose because most people who vote regularly, traditionally, are older. So I think you need to change your approach a little bit. Also,
fair enough.
Robert Frost said back in the 60s sometime, he said, a liberal is so broad-minded he can't take his own side in an argument. That is a problem with broad-minded people. And I'd rather elect a broad-minded person than a fascist. So that Democrats have fallen all over themselves, I've never been a fan of either party at all. But it's a corporate problem. And the corporations are the people you need to get at. The billionaire.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Karen.
I do think I'm the one who threw in a lot of the older voters, and that's because of the data on these past elections. The elections that just happened last week, the data was unbelievable. The number of younger voters, the number of younger volunteers, and the age of the candidates. But it's not just age. And again, I don't lean into ageism at all. I think that there's so much wisdom in our elders, but age as well as political leanings and everything showed that this is a passing of the baton. But age was just one small factor in that. Also, just demographics. In general, were at play. But I did say more of that than Chris. Chris was just leaning into that because of Sherrod. So that was more me than Chris.
Sure. And I'll say too, generalizations are dangerous. I think what we're getting to, I'm someone who likes to look at the answer below the answer. And when you see everybody, whatever age group you want and below, 44 and below, saying we need younger people, less older people, they're not really saying that we need less older people. What they are saying is nobody is listening to them and nobody understands what their life is in Congress. That is what they are saying. And unfortunately, that gets bottled up into like just a very quick snippet of less old people in Congress. And that's not what I'm advocating for. I think, again, Bernie Sanders is a perfect example. Like, if there's folks out there, if there was another, I think Sherrod Brown's 72, if there was another 72-year-old who had jumped in the race that I was like totally jazzed about, the same thing would apply, and I would have stepped back and supported him or her.
So let's hear from Lynn Feinerman. And Lynn just muted herself again.
Hello.
But Lynn,
I did not mute myself.
Lynn, let me just introduce you because Lynn is the host of Women Rising Radio. She has a radio show. And
awesome.
She's one of our regular contributors here. Sorry about the mix-up with the muting, but you're unmuted now, and we would love to hear from you, Lynn.
Okay. What I want to say to you is if you are in any way hopeful or supportive of nuclear of any kind, I would never vote for you. And the reason is
Fair enough.
that your state, if it's Ohio, I believe it is, your state has had an incredible amount of trouble with the economics and the pollution from nuclear. Nuclear is not viable. Nuclear is being sold because corporate interests want to push it so they can make money off of it. It is absolutely unviable in every way. And if you want to tell people that you are truly concerned about the health and the medical issues of your people in your state, then you would never be for nuclear, because nuclear is a polluter, it's a radiator, it sickens people, and it has sickened people in Ohio. I suggest that you go back and look at the
I'm aware.
history. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks.
Lynn. Very well
I
said.
Yeah, I mean, real fast. Again, at the end of the day, I'm not going to agree with anybody. I have a science background. Like science is something I love. And nuclear energy is something that has a lot of really positive things to it. And actually, I agree. Like nuclear energy is a radioactive thing, but coal power plants produce as much, if not more, radioactivity per year. It's just distributed over a larger time frame and a larger distance. But also, just within that, cold fusion is something that supposedly we're getting pretty close to. We had a really big breakthrough, I think it was this year or last year, where we became energy positive on cold fusion for the first time ever. If that is the case, and we can do that at a large way, then we will have an infinite amount of energy forever, and cold fusion doesn't produce any nuclear waste. Like, so that is one of the things that if we happen to do that, it would do it. So I get it. If this is your red line, and you don't want to vote for somebody that puts nuclear into the green energy part, I totally get that.
Now we lost Vina Colley. Vina wanted to talk to you.
She's right
I'm
on
here.
top.
I'm here. I just lowered my hand.
Oh, okay, Vina. Vina lives in Ohio, and she worked in a radioactive situation, and she has a lot to share with all of us. And Vina, we're so happy to have you here, and let's hear from you now.
I'm happy to see some new blood, young blood, running for representative in Ohio. And I like to sit down and talk to you because I'm a whistleblower from the Portsmouth Acid Diffusion Plant. There is no nuclear that is clean energy. They are pushing off small modular reactors as clean energy. It's the same process that they're doing, except it's on a smaller scale. And it's a smaller scale for the waste. I have broke every major story at the Piketon facility for over 40 years. The bedrock is fractured. They have 12 waste cells on site. If this waste cell leaks into the aquifers, which we already know it's leaking into the first aquifer, and then there's another one underneath, that will contaminate people all the way up to Indiana. For 70 years, we have been taking all of our pollution, all of our stuff that goes off site, goes in a pipe that goes to the Scioto River. It goes to Little Beaver, Big Beaver Creek, then the Scioto River, and 20 miles from there, it goes to the Ohio River. So we have been contaminating people for 70 years, all the way to the Mississippi. And so what happens to our representatives, they get money from the corporation. And then they take these people and they feed them this money, and then they forget about the victims. Piketon has the highest rate of cancer in the state of Ohio and nationally. Joe Mangano did an epidemiology study, and he said this is the worst site that he's ever seen. And he's done a lot of work, including the tooth fairy, the strontium in the baby's teeth. And then we are 107% above national average for childhood cancer. We have a victims group in Piketon has started But I've been gathering names for 40 years, and it started in 1957 at Piketon when the workers started to die, and they went to the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio knew these workers, 4 or 5 of them, were all in the hospital, and the only thing they had in common is they all worked at Piketon. Myself, I lost my husband to melanoma cancer. I lost my brother, and he didn't work at the plant, but he was in the community. I lost my brother-in-law who worked at the plant. He had these nodules, the same nodules that I have. His went into his lymph nodes, and he died. Well, his wife washed his clothes, and she died of breast cancer. His son worked at the plant, and he died of kidney cancer. I have 2 brothers. Neither of them that I know of worked at the plant. I know one brother was a construction worker, but my one brother died of small cell cancer. My other brother, about 4 months ago, died of pancreatic cancer. None of these cancers in this family are alike. It's not hereditary. And you can hear this story over and over and over when you come to visit and we go meet these people. They've lost their kids going to that school. I think 11 kids that went to that school. And then they turned around and sold the school to a preacher who works at the plant. So it's a horrible story. I worked with Senator Brown. I had to petition him to put us in RECA. So he called all of the county representatives, and I have these letters. They were all wanting us to get into RECA because they know what they've done to us. And I don't think we need any more nutrient in Pike County. I think we deserve some type of industry that's cleaner and safer. We deserve it because we've been used as human guinea pigs here. They sacrificed our communities to keep this plant out there, and they lied. They knew all this was going off site because I found off site in the EPA office. And the EPA office knew the Little Beaver was quit. The Beaver Creek was contaminated in 92 when I broke the
Vina, I just want to thank you so much for sharing these heartbreaking details. I apologize. We've gone on too long and we're kind of running out of time. So I saw where you and Chris are exchanging information. You're going to get together offline and discuss this. And thank you so much, Vina, for all you've done and all you continue to do. I really apologize. We're just running behind on time, and that's my fault.
And Chris, if you want to come here,
again.
maybe I can hook you up with the Democrat Party and we can all come and we can talk. It's a good place. It's a good place. And we've been ran over by the Republicans. I mean, the whole thing up there in Columbus is on this. They have a nuclear board up there. They pretend like the community has input, but we don't get any input.
Vina, I'm sorry. What you're saying is absolutely wonderful, and I wish we could zero in on that, but due to a screw up on my part, we're falling behind.
Right.
We need to hear.
I've learned so
Jerry
much.
Ashton. Yeah,
Vina, I'll call you at your cell phone that you gave me. I'll give you a call for sure.
You're awesome, Vina. You're absolutely amazing, and we'll hear from you again next week and moving forward because what you're doing is essential life-saving organizing. Thank you so much. We love you. And so Chris and Jenny, if you could wrap up, then we'll have Jerry Ashton come on, and I hope you can listen to Jerry. He's doing absolutely amazing things to help veterans, and he was giving a little pushback about some of the things we were talking about. Some of us old folks are still out here kicking and doing some good stuff, and Jerry's doing amazing stuff. So we'll be getting to him right after this. But Jenny and Chris, thank you so much. And if you'd like to leave us with some good thoughts, and then also we'd love to have you both on again, as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. First, I'm going to hop off and I'll be listening to Jerry while I drive to pick up the kids from high school. It's time to go do the carpool. Thank you. I always learn so much when I come on. Like Vina, I just want to hear some of the data that you have. I grew up part of my life in the Pacific Northwest where we had a big nuclear power plant too. I want to thank Chris especially today. We were actually prepped just to talk about the election, and I told him you're not going to be talking about your campaign at all. Nobody's going to be asking you questions about that. We just had all kinds of data on the election results. So thank you, Chris, for segueing into answering questions and things when I completely, I guess, did not understand what the topic was. So
Yeah, we're not
thank
the
you.
most disciplined here, if you haven't noticed.
It's all good. I enjoyed it.
I love that you could just pivot on a dime like that. But thank you, everybody. It gives me so much hope that there are so many people that are just passionate about our country and passionate about the direction that we're going in. So I love coming on here. You guys are some of my favorites. You're literally my favorite thing that I do. And I tell that to my partner and my kids and said that to Chris. You get to come on, my favorite thing that I do every week. So thank you, everybody.
And we'll
Yeah.
look forward to having you again, Jenny. And I know you have to run off and do the carpool thing, and that's awesome. But this is what we're talking about: people who get stuff done in between their daily life. And I think that perspective is too rare when it comes to our government and our leadership. So hopefully we can change that moving forward.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for the invite, and the questions were good. And I'm happy to come back anytime. And I didn't really say this at the beginning, but I'm a grassroots guy. I'm taking money just from normal folks, so I don't have any like connections to any of these corporations, and I don't owe them a thing. So if we can find good solutions to help people out, I am down for any of those conversations. But I greatly appreciate your time and having me on tonight. So. This was a great group. It was fun.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Jenny. Love to have you guys on. Love to have you back. And now a little bit behind schedule, but we're hoping to hear from my good friend, Jerry Ashton. He's an absolute wizard when it comes to saving people from crushing debt. And one of the things that young people are facing these days, and veterans who go out and serve our country and to come back home, and they find themselves further and further in debt. And Jerry has stepped up with a handful of people working with him to alleviate veterans' debt. And I don't want to take any more time away from you, Jerry. Always love to have you here. You're a big favorite of ours. It's been too long since we've had you, and it's great to have you back. Thank you for honoring our veterans and honoring Veterans Day on Veterans Day Eve, and doing all the great work that you're doing. Can you tell us what you're up to these days, Jerry?
Well, thank you for the introduction. And thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk about what should be everybody's favorite subject, which is seeing that our Constitution is defended, and it's defended presumably outside of our shores, should battles be necessary. And never thought that I'd be at the situation as a Navy veteran myself, having served from 1955 to 1959, variously aboard a heavy cruiser in the Pacific, Naval Air Station, CB base. But it was a wonderful experience, and it's a shame that so few people take advantage of raising the right hand and joining the military. So what I'm going to do is I kind of open up for you a view of what we're going through as veterans dealing with civilian issues and civilians who don't quite understand where veterans fit into the world of peacemaking. So what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to take any time out of this, I'm going to put into chat all the relevant things I would like to have people take a look at, which I want you to copy and paste into something, but we won't discuss it now. I'll just give you an idea of what we're doing. Let's see if this appears.
And Jerry, while you're doing that, I just want to remind everybody, Jerry is an absolute financial wizard. He's figured out a way to buy up debt that our veterans owe to different companies and collection agencies, this, that, and the
billions
other.
with a B of dollars, billions, right, Jerry?
And through his wizardry and know-how, he buys up this debt and tells veterans, you're free and clear. You can go and live your life. And one of the things, Jerry and I were talking about this on the phone the other day. Being in debt is a primary driver of suicide and suicide ideation for our veterans. And it's I can't think of anything more tragic than that. Um, and it doesn't have to be that way. And thank you, Jerry, for doing what you can to lift lift up our veterans and free them from this crushing, psychologically abusive debt.
Well, thank you. Um, I, by any chance, did I just come online with my website by any chance?
I just put it up there, Jerry.
Oh, you did.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, let's
This-
take a look at the top. How
You
to
want to
It-
go? Yeah,
all
just
the way to
point
the
me
top.
around. Right there.
Go down now to gentlemen. Keep one page, a little bit more down. Okay, right there. Click on that arrow for Colonel Bent.
Well, we can't show videos on this video because the YouTube.
Oh, is that
There's
right?
Bunch
YouTube,
gets-
like, unless he
Well-
makes it Creative
Yeah.
Commons. This
Well,
is
the
a
good
note for
thing-
everybody. If they make their videos Creative Commons, then we can share it. But otherwise, YouTube.
Got
Yeah,
it.
that's
I put it into chat. So anybody who wants to
Okay,
check out
we
that
can share
video.
that. Yeah.
So
and if you go to endveteransdebt, all one word, .org, endveteransdebt.org. It's pretty straightforward. That's what it's about. If you're listening on the radio, we urge you to follow up with us on YouTube so you can see all the sight and sounds and all of our pretty faces. But if you don't get around to that, go to endveteransdebt. Let's see,
endveterandebt.org. You got it.
end veteran debt, not veterans, veteran. Okay,
Thank you.
singular.
Thank you, Grigi. Thank you, Grigi.
And
Okay.
and Steve Caruso is our own wizard, our technical wizard. Okay, Jerry, please go ahead.
Okay, you can get that off the screen. And here's the brief story. I was a Navy journalist. Put that away when I left the service, and then I revived it during Occupy Wall Street when I blogged for the Huffington Post about Occupy. I was part of that. When I was in Occupy, and by the way, my career between the Navy and Occupy Wall Street was in the debt collection industry. And so experiencing when I was younger, Occupy Wall Street. Now, when I was younger, I mean, I was 75. Okay. So when I was younger, as part of Occupy Wall Street, I started listening to the complaints, what wasn't changing. And one major thing they brought up was medical debt. I don't have to tell you folks about that because it's always in the headlines, always in the headlines. I can guarantee you in 2014, when I started RIP medical debt, it was not in the headlines. And it took activism by people like me to bring to America's attention that the discrepancies in what we call healthcare for profit, was killing people. So I started a charity, co-founded RIP Medical Debt, been around for 10 years. So far, we've raised enough money to purchase debt on the debt market to abolish $22 billion worth of medical debt for almost 15 million Americans. Now, along the way, I discovered that veterans ended up in debt. How in the world can that be? When you raise your hand and you serve your country, one would think that you were taken care of once you leave the service, and it ain't quite so. So when I discovered that, I resigned from RIP Medical Debt to start a 501c3 private foundation. You'll see in the text that I put into chat a donation request, as well as information about what I'm doing, because this is a tough slog in order to be able to relieve people of debt, and veterans in particular. One of the things is educational. I don't know how many people here are familiar with the term social determinants. A social determinant is something within the society or the structure or the world that we live in that is a determinant of everything: health, death, success. Well, debt is a social determinant of suicidal ideation and the act itself. Being a member of the debt collection industry, I'm not I'm not usually welcomed by them when I go to some of their events, because it looks as if I'm attacking debt collection in itself, and I'm really attacking the way that debt collection is done, the inhumaneness of it, the shaming of it, the use of guilt to do that. So as I'm doing and creating ways of bringing people into awareness, a lot of that is education. And a lot of that is getting in touch with and working with civilian groups. What is necessary is for the civilian as well as the veteran to get out of their silos and get together to discuss this. When was the last time you were invited to a VFW bar to have a drink with somebody? When was the last time you both, invited veterans over to your tea party? Whatever it is, there's not that much happening. There's not that dialogue that's necessary. So probably the most important thing that I'm going to leave you with is the fact that, and you can reach me, Jerry at endveterandebt.org, is we need to be able to create a coalition. I'm working with some great organizations already, and I'd like to add your organization to that. So now I'm open for Q&A for as long as Mike will allow for that. Mike, I love you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of the millions of people who've you've helped by lifting the debt off their shoulders. And I want to echo that. We've got Veterans Day tomorrow. Go out and hug a vet, thank them for their service, him and her for their service. See what you can do to help make their life better. I don't know what's going on with my video. There we go. Jerry, you kind of are modest when it comes to mentioning just how many people you've helped and how much debt you've helped to extinguish, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have an estimate on the number of people, both with the medical debt and with the veterans debt that you've helped, and then also the total debt that you've retired?
We'll do that, and we want to have Gregory answer. I'm going to answer her next. Here's the deal. I co-created an amazing charity. It's still doing wonderful things. We're abolishing debt in every state, all 50 states. And there are millions of Americans. Would you like to know how many Christmas cards I've gotten?
Sure.
Well, that wasn't the point. The point is I had to do what I had to do. I'm what you would call an unintended activist.
There you go.
How many bill collectors do you know that want to get rid of your bill?
There you go.
Okay.
You're like the Scrooge story, but with an even happier ending and for so many people. The Christmas Carol.
Hey,
Now, with
hey,
veterans,
boy.
here's my concern. I want and need people to come to my website, donate to the work that I'm doing, especially over this holiday period that's coming up. Everybody I pull out of debt, even if it's even if it's paying their rent, even if it's putting tires on the car so they can get to work.
Right. And I've been on some of your Zooms, and you've talked about putting ramps in for people who've been injured
Yeah.
serving their country, and they couldn't afford to habituate their homes so they could even get around. And you stepped up and helped people with that. So, whatever, if they need a service dog, you'd help them with that. And you helped them with food, you helped them. And a lot of these people are very proud. They don't have their hand out. They
That's
don't
the thing
want.
about a veteran. More so than the typical citizen, veterans have been told to suck it up, keep your problems to yourself. We've got your back. Everybody knows they got your back, but nobody goes to a dinner party and tells everybody that they're being chased down by a bill collector.
Mm.
That's
That's
not
right. People are ashamed of it, and they shouldn't be.
They should not be.
Steve, you have something for us?
Boy, that turkey, is that still hanging up in the butcher's window down there? Kid turns around and goes, Walker, you remember
About
that?
a documentary that I
He's-
saw.
So who's talking? Anyway, so yeah, God bless you, Jerry. Billions of dollars of debt retired. And that, I'm not to put a damper on things, but that speaks to how leveraged the corporations are invested in stealing from the American people. And
Yeah.
without all that leveraging that they're doing, we could afford it, no problem. And thank God for people like Jerry who has found a way to give many people relief. You're just one in his, there's people on other planets going, hey, that guy's okay. Okay.
You're an interplanetary hero, Jerry. How
You
about
are.
that?
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody with anything relative to the holidays coming up? Any way that how we figured out that debt in itself and the way that debt is collected is harmful, whether you're a civilian or veteran. And I want you to get on that team so that we together can work this thing out because it's kind of lonely out here by myself.
Heidi, go ahead. You have a comment or question?
Yeah, I wanted to know, I heard that there were 22 suicides. Is that a day or was that a month back about 5, 6 years ago? What's the current, do you know what the current status
Yes.
of
Yes.
is?
The VA uses 22 suicides a day, which it hasn't changed much for the last 5 years. It's been a failure on the part of the VA to reduce veteran suicide because what they're doing is they're addressing the symptoms and not the disease. So the symptoms, well, let's go back to the 22. They don't count in the fact that a veteran can be driving down a clear highway, high noon, and run into the only pine tree within 30 miles. That's not suicide. Friends and family do not confess that it's a dishonor, the stigma. So what is really true is closer to 44 veterans every day. In the conversation that we've been having right now, the hours that we've been talking about, how many veterans have gone the most harmful, self-harm way possible. So awareness, if you don't know about it, you can't do anything about it. But after this particular call, you can't say that you don't know about it.
That's right. That's
Now, the
right.
question is, are you willing to do something about it? Oh, thank you so much. Love those hearts.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much. It just occurred to me a few days ago that Veterans Day was coming up, and I immediately thought of you, and you were so kind to make time for us. But Thanksgiving's coming up. A lot of veterans are going to be feeling the pain of not being able to afford a Thanksgiving dinner or not being able to afford the roof over the head or whatever it is. So maybe you could come back again and we can talk about those things and other ways people can get involved to help you with what you're
Let's
doing.
make it a January 2 date. So the first of the year, we're going to have something new to celebrate. And by the way, veterans are very much in tune with the national mood about the current administration. There are a few nutcases that believe in command and control. Fortunately, they're sitting there with their beers and what have you, so they're not too dangerous.
Heidi Ver, thanks, Jerry, again. Anything else? Anybody have any other questions? Heidi Vertaler wants to update us on the result from the Maine referendum result.
Yeah, we'll get to her. We're about to go into a deep dive on the elections with Ray
Just
and
real quick,
Andrea.
because she's got to be somewhere at 6:30. That's why she brought
you.
it up.
Yeah, no, we'll get to her at that point. Yeah. So
Before 6:30. I mean,
yeah, we'll
it
get
should
to
be
her
real
before.
quick. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah,
Bye.
yeah. Thanks. And
Thanks,
thanks,
Jerry.
Hattie. Jerry, thank you so much, and come back again soon. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of all the people you've helped, and it's just absolutely wonderful. We are happy now to welcome back two of my good friends, Ray McClendon and Andrea Miller. Ray, you should be able to get your camera going if you want. I'd like to see that good old grandfather clock that you have in the background sometimes, depending on where you are. Um, but yeah, let's see if we can't get Ray. There we go. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
My understanding is some people went out and voted last Tuesday, and they did some amazing things in Georgia and some amazing things in Virginia. And I can't wait to hear from both of you what went on in your states and your impression of what went on. And we'll try to accommodate Heidi real quick. Heidi has a real quick um, Maine update. So Heidi, quickly update Maine, and then we'll jump into Georgia and Virginia. How about that, Heidi?
Yep, we definitely stopped the referendum number one, which would have put which would have put a lot of pressure on people for absentee voting and putting in and install, and that would have also installed voter IDs issues. And then the other one was election two, where a referendum two, which is where we instituted passed that instituted a red flag law.
Is that about guns?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Heidi. Brilliant, brief, right to the point, and you're able to get off to your next task for
Thank
the
you so
day.
much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Heidi. We appreciate you so much. And now let's go to hear from Andrea and Ray, all the great news, all the great reports. Um, well, can we hear from Andrea first, Ray? Would that be all right? Or okay, Andrea, kick us off on the report from Virginia and elsewhere.
We had a great day in Virginia. Steve, yeah, here comes my presentation. All right, next slide. What did we do? Next slide. All right, now, early voting. 1,448,977 people early voted in Virginia. That was roughly 280,000 more people than voted in 2021. Now, what was also really great about this was Democrats and Republicans both early voted. So that meant that on election day, it wouldn't all be Republican votes. It would be both. Next slide. We're not going to stay on this slide very long because people see this and want to go into a panic. Now, see all those red counties? Virginia is a rural state that happens to have 12 blue cities and counties that sort of save her from herself. Next slide. All right, now, statewide turnout in 2025, and the numbers will be going up for the next 6 days because in Virginia, when you mail your vote by mail ballot, as long as it's postmarked on election day and arrives on Friday by 5 p.m., it will be counted. Virginia also has same-day voter registration, including on election day, and registrars have 10 business days to approve those registrations and then count the votes. So right now, our voting total is 3,390,906, and that total goes up every day. We are 75% of the 2024 election. And that normally doesn't really happen in Virginia. Next slide. Now, we made history, you all. Not only did we elect the first woman governor, we also see the highest number of votes ever for a Virginia governor. Also, it was the fastest reporting of the final results. I predicted they would announce the race by 8. They announced at roughly 7:46. And as I said before, 75% of the 2024 presidential election. Now, here's the other thing. Abigail Spanberger, 57%. Earl Sears, 42%. That is a 15-point difference, people. 15 whole points. I called 15. Other people were going, yeah, it's going to be between 6 and 7. And I'm like, no, it's going to be 15. So it was a landslide, tsunami, ass whooping, whichever one you prefer. It was. All right, Lieutenant Governor, Virginia elected the first Muslim lieutenant governor who also got the highest number of votes for a lieutenant governor. So we have 2 women now leading the Commonwealth of Virginia. Next slide. The Attorney General race made us a little nervous, but as Abigail said, let the voters decide. And the voters decided, all right, it was a text message. Did he shoot him? Did he show up at his house with a gun? So let me get this straight. It was a text message back in 2022. You know what? We don't care. So Jay Jones won. So that means Virginia will be participating in all the Attorney General lawsuits. Who knows? We may file a lawsuit of our own. Next slide.
Andrea, real quick, for people who weren't following this that closely, Jay Jones got involved in a little bit of a scandal because he quipped in a text message something that he shouldn't have. He apologized for it. And it's not like there's a president of the United States who goes on social media and says a dozen crazier things every freaking day. But there you go.
Right. And then immediately after they broke the Jay Jones scandal, then there was the public chat scandal of the young Republicans saying we need to lynch Black people, rape women, and and
I love Hitler.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was awful. So anyway, to make a long story short, the Virginia General Assembly, when they convene in January, will have 64 Democratic seats, the most seats we've had since 1988, and there will be 36 Republican seats, and that will equal the Virginia House. The Virginia Senate was not up for election. Currently, the Virginia Senate has 40 seats. 21 of the seats are Democrats. Senator Hashmi will eventually resign. We do not have the date for her election. And then there will be a special election to fill her seat. So I was expecting that there would be 9 seats in Virginia that would probably flip. 13 seats flipped. And we have one where the candidate is 1,200 votes behind, and there are supposed to be roughly 1,200 college student votes that came in on election day. So we are watching that race. That could be seat 14. Stay tuned. Next slide. All right. Now, in 2026, we are looking very hard at Congressional District 1. There are little check marks there of the counties where we won. Chesterfield and Enrico are the two largest counties in Congressional District 1. We also won in James City and York County. We don't ever win there. And we won in Williamsburg. Next slide. All right. This is what CD1 looks like. It goes from our ocean all the way down into Enrico and Chesterfield County. So when you look at it, it is mostly older voters, but they've got a nice collection of young voters. Next slide. CD2. CD2 is predominantly in the city of Virginia Beach, which is 57% of the district. We won 3 of 6 seats there, and there were the 3 candidates who lost all had more than 42% of the vote. So we think we are in a good position for 2026. And Virginia is planning on redistricting. So we have already had the first vote on the constitutional amendment. The second vote will probably be in January because it has to be in 2 different years. And then that will go out to the voters to ratify, and Virginia will redistrict. End of slideshow. As I said, it was a great election. I will be at the inauguration. I'll be seated in the "and my mother's weird crazy friends" section, but okay, I'll take it.
Real quick, Andrea, before we get to Ray, you knew Abigail before most of us had ever heard of her. You met her
Yes.
through her mother, who was a champion for the Equal Rights Amendment. Can you
Yes.
just say a couple quick words about that, and I'll try to get that picture up.
Okay. I've known Abigail. I met her mother in 2009. So I've known Abigail since 2009. And I knew that she was a lovely young woman who had 3 daughters and at the time seemed to have 0 interest in politics. But what she loved and what she watched was her mother's dedication to getting the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. And she had taken up the charge back in 2009, which is when I met her. And then in finally 2020, when we won the Virginia House and the Virginia Senate, we were able to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment and become the 38th state in February of 2020. And I gave the closing argument.
Andrea, can I share your slideshow in the chat?
That is my new favorite picture. That is Eileen's mother, Eileen Davis, and that is Abigail holding her mother when it has just been announced that Abigail is the governor-elect of Virginia.
I just want to call everybody's attention to how poignant and inspirational this moment was. Eileen dedicated her life to equality for both genders, all genders, every gender, and she was able to celebrate her daughter being elected the first female governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the former capital of the Confederacy, and it's history in so many different ways, and just so inspiring for me personally, and I think for everybody.
Yes, that is my new favorite picture.
And so, Andrea, thank you so much. And we've been waiting so patiently to hear from you, Ray. We got some good news from down south.
Oh, absolutely.
So take it away, my friend.
Absolutely. And I just want to add my applause for the great work that Andrea did in Virginia. It was extraordinary to see the direct work, and I'm sure she's going to have even more slides. She's the queen of slides, but I know she's going to have even more slides soon, showing what the difference was that the grassroots organizations made in order to get that number from some people were predicting that I talked to were predicting as low as 5 seats being flipped in the Virginia House of Delegates, and to end up with 13. I mean, that's just amazing. And I wanted to just say that because there's a throughput that's running through all of this, taking us into 2026, which is where I lead into Georgia. And that is that those Public Service Commission races were 2 seats that because of what had been going on with legal challenges and other things came up at the same time in an off-year election, which we were able to grab hold to and make sure that we not only dealt with turnout, but we also focused on high utility rates. And that was the primary impetus for turning what had been an all Republican Public Service Commission for the last 2 decades to where we were able to flip 2 seats from incumbent Public Service Commission Republicans to Democrats with a resounding 25-point victory in each race. And the slide that Mike has put up now shows how dramatically there was a shift across the entire state. Essentially, it was all blue, except for a couple of very small counties in South Georgia. So this has great importance going into 2026, that the affordability issue is key. People are concerned about the way they see the current administration and MAGA Republicans operating managing and operating this country, and we have to build on it. There is in the middle of the emotional response that we've gotten and the euphoria, though we have to recognize a couple of things, however. Number one is that the municipal races had a lot to do with this shift as well as what was going on nationally. Remember that this was a municipal race year here across Georgia, and Democrats tend to turn out more. We had the City of Atlanta elections, we had elections across various metropolitan districts, as well as in South Georgia. So those voters would tend to go Democratic anyway. But with a 25% margin in those PSC races, that is that was wildly beyond our expectation of what we expected from those 2 races. The other thing is to point out that we had great candidates. Just as in Virginia, we had 2 extraordinary candidates, both focused on changing the paradigm from being a public service commission focused on supporting the power industry to concern about what the costs are to the citizens. That makes a difference. And I think that also is a consistent throughput with other elections around the country where cost and affordability was paramount. So we're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of work still to do. We cannot rest on our laurels here. We will have all of our statewide constitutional offices on the ballot next year. In addition to Ossoff's race for Senate, which is probably going to be the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history. So we have to build on this momentum, knowing that MAGA is going to turn out in force in 2026. They're already running scared based upon the results that came out. We've seen ads now calling John Ossoff, John in quotes, Mamdani Ossoff. So they're already starting to try to scare people going into 2026. But it was a great day, great momentum builder, lots of work to be done.
So, Andrea and Ray, thank you so much. You know, it might backfire by calling John Mondami Ossoff, because Zoran is really, really popular, and people in Kentucky were really disappointed that they couldn't vote in the Democratic in the New York mayoral race, as far as I know. So I'm hoping that that works against them. I am it's so brilliant. I looked at Alicia Johnson and Peter Hubbard, and they were really fabulous. And I'm wondering, I know they focused on affordability and on making the Public Service Commission work for the people of Georgia rather than for the big corporations.
Absolutely.
And I know that Harvey is so disappointed that he's not here today with you to celebrate Andrea and Ray. He really did want to be here. And he wanted to talk about Vodal. And specifically, did either of these two Democrats who prevailed so brilliantly in the election, did they focus on nuclear power at all?
Absolutely. We had substantial conversations, especially with Peter Hubbard. He's from Metro Atlanta, and he is laser focused on cost and the overruns from Vogel, and ensuring that they don't continue to increase rates for basic customers of Georgia Power. Between Vogel and data centers, those are two of the most critical issues of that he was concerned about. Peter Hubbard has been active in these issues for years. I'm going to try to get him on with us once he takes a needed break here from campaigning, because he's been involved in this for years. He has set up his own nonprofit, and he's been advocating on behalf of the ratepayers for several years in front of the board. His education is in this area, so he brings a wide breadth of expertise to this equation. So we're extremely grateful to have somebody like that. The other thing too with him is Alicia Johnson was elected to a full term. This was a part of the legal process. Peter Hubbard's seat was a part of the legal process that had been delayed for years, which was a part of a suit, or part of which Richard Rose, who was my partner, was directly involved in. Because it just got on the ballot this year, it is only for a year. So he's got to run again in 2026. So he'll be back on the ballot for 2026.
So I have a follow-up. There are 5 members of this commission. It's now 3 Republicans who work for the corporations and 2 Democrats who work for the people of Georgia. Now, we were disappointed when our good friend Daniel Blackman wasn't elected when he ran for one of those 5 seats. And then he was subsequently appointed to, I believe, to the EPA, something within the EPA.
He was with the EPA in the Biden administration.
Right. So I'm wondering whether there is a possibility that at some point Daniel Blackman will also run for one of those 5 seats, and that we might actually see a 3 of the 5 commissioners, at least 3. And if we could see Daniel Blackman, Alicia Johnson, and Peter Hubbard, all 3, wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be great. The problem is, and this is one of the issues that we sued over, is that these are statewide positions where you have to run based upon your residence. So unfortunately, Hubbard and Blackman live in the same district. So that's the challenge. But we still have time. And remember, you might recall that Blackman was running for this seat but he was disqualified based upon a person that didn't make the cut in the primary brought against him that then gave the opening to Peter. So there'll be some discussions behind the scenes. Blackman is a very talented person. He's up and coming. He knows this industry. We'd love to have him in. But I don't think it would be good for him to run against an incumbent now that Peter would be in the primary. We need to figure out another avenue, which is going to take some thought.
Thank you.
Wonderful questions, Myla. I was wondering if we could shift gears a little bit and talk about nationally the impact on our nation's political life coming out of these elections. And maybe if we can get a memo to some of the Democratic senators that capitulated on, instead of holding the line on the Trump-led assault on healthcare and so many other issues. But I just want to say real quickly, where I grew up in Onondaga County, New York State, upstate New York, the county council flipped Democrat for the first time in about 50 years. And anecdotes coming out of it included the president of the county council was he wasn't running, but a bunch of his colleagues were up and he was not door knocking and asking people vote Republican. And the vitriol he got in deep red areas where people said, we're sick of Trump, we're sick of the way he behaves, we're sick of his tariffs, we're sick of all of this stuff going on. And we're Republicans, but we aren't voting for any Republicans now. And he said he even got hacked from his own mother. So could you two please comment on what you've been hearing and what you've been thinking? I know you're both very well versed on what's going on. You've seen trends come and go. So what's your take?
Go ahead, Andrea.
Was going to say voters in Virginia. Now, again, remember, Virginia, we sit on the other side of Washington, D.C. We have the second largest number of federal employees, 350,000. So imagine 350,000 totally pissed off federal workers who have been forced to take early retirement, laid off, or working without pay, are being furloughed, and they are literally all around the state. Now, let's take a look at the low income people in Virginia. The Black voters, the Hispanic voters, the Black voters are very, very upset because they are looking at more food insecurity. They are also looking at job loss. They are housing insecure because a number of the larger housing complexes are being, quote, redeveloped, and we all know that means moving all the Black folks out, tearing them down, and then building luxury condominiums. We've all seen that movie before. And then our Hispanic voters were very, very upset because they are looking at the inhumane treatment that is being visited on brown people because, now you're the scum of the earth and we're going to just kidnap you off the face of the planet. So there was a lot of anger in Virginia. And we saw, as I said, this is a huge voter turnout for a state-only election year.
Yeah, and to augment Andrea's point, we saw in Metro various districts where voter turnout from the previous municipal elections in 2021, percentage turnout was up anywhere from 5% to 12 to 14%. So that's a very strong indicator that people are concerned about what's going on in their communities, what they are seeing happening with their federal government, and what needs to happen in local governments. These trends, like I said, it's important to understand that these numbers went up across the state, and they went up particularly when you see the longer those arrows are that you see, it means that there was the greater shift Democratic. And if you notice, a lot of those arrows are in mid Georgia, middle Georgia, and some in the South Georgia. Now, in that middle Georgia track across the state, there are a lot of Black counties there. There's a lot of opportunity going into 2026 to flip flip at least one or more congressional seats. The other thing that we've noticed too is that, and we've seen this as a national trend. Trump was conned a lot of people in 2024 about not only bringing costs down, but also how he was going to make jobs available to young men, whether they be Black men, Hispanic, or white. And we've seen that has not happened. And Hispanics, which had gone for Trump between 46, 48%, depending on the numbers that you saw, those numbers reversed dramatically across the nation. We've seen those numbers in some of these races be as high as 70% Hispanic men voting for Democratic candidates. Remember this too, that none of the Texas redistricting works if Hispanics don't maintain their 2024 Republican turnout percentages. So all of this could backfire, all of this gerrymandering could backfire in their faces if our Hispanic community continues to recognize what's going on with ICE and the Border Patrol. As long as that continues, and we know he is the king of double down, as long as he continues to do that, we've got an opportunity to have overwhelming response in the midterm elections, even with the gerrymandering. So that's something else for us to keep an eye on nationally.
I just want to say real quickly, as a quick reminder, Greep is a nonprofit, nonpartisan project. We analyze things that are going on. We're willing to have anybody on, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene or anybody else who wants to come in and tell us their point of view. That said, we are staunchly in favor of a constitutional democracy as opposed to whatever the heck they're whipping up for us from Mar-a-Lago. So yeah, and we are very, very concerned with everything that's going on, but we have a little bit of a bounce in our step because it looks like most people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Greens, and Libertarians don't like the idea of fascism by and large. And
Absolutely.
so Myla, you want to get in? I'd also like to invite everybody to please raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment.
Well, speaking of your Georgia peach, Marjorie Taylor Greene, we now see that she is joined with some Republicans to get a discharge petition going to release the Epstein files. And she's sounding a lot more moderate these days than she used to when she was talking about Jewish space lasers and other things. I mean, a lot of other things. It's pretty out there. So just in the past couple of days, we have been hearing that when people in the FBI were charged with going through all of the material that had been sequestered by the FBI, they put something like 1,000 FBI people onto the task of reviewing what turned out to be extraordinarily disturbing evidence about some of the most horrific predation that we have ever heard of. And part of the reason we believe, a lot of people believe that the House of Representatives is not meeting and that Mike Johnson is keeping them from meeting has to do with his fear of having this extraordinary material released. David Schuster, a journalist, reported that he had spoken to Republicans who believed that as soon as that discharge petition is passed, that as many as 100 or more Republicans would vote in favor of releasing this material, this really disturbing material. And it's just a pretty curious state of affairs. And I wonder if either of you have heard about this reporting that 100 Republican congresspeople are probably poised to vote for the release of this information, and how that might impact the future of Donald Trump and the Republican Party in Georgia, Virginia, and throughout the country. Either one of you want to touch that one?
Well, it's not really anything that I spend a lot of time following. I don't really follow the regime and their insanity. But what we do see here in Virginia, listening to Republicans talk among themselves, is they seem to be very much against pedophiles.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Andrea. And I think that Donald Trump and his inner circle have greatly miscalculated the passion. And this is something that, I haven't followed it super closely, but a little bit. And I've known that Trump and Epstein were close friends for years and years. And here I saw all these people with Trump as their profile picture yelling about release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. And I was like, do you know who's all over those files? They should probably be called the Trump Epstein files, because he's probably if he's not the star, he's definitely one of the big supporting actors in that whole catastrophe. And Andrea, this is the thing. It's so appalling. A lot of people, a lot of innocent people have been harmed by molestation and abuse. And it's a horrendous stain on our society that not enough has been done about it. And to have a president who's implicated in this, running, promising to release it, and then when he gets in, he's like, well, we don't want to harm certain people by releasing it. Well, we know who Trump cares about. It's Trump. He doesn't care about the people, the survivors who've been attacked. He's attacked a bunch of women himself of various ages. He doesn't seem to discriminate against women as long as they're under 30, apparently. But and Camilla Reese wrote in the chat, didn't Trump meet Melania through Epstein? Yeah, with the so-called Lolita Express. And we had Bob Petrakis, one of our organizers and one of the great heroes of independent journalism. He broke the story about the money laundering aspect that involved Epstein, and he had death threats against him. So we've been kind of following this story and how deep it goes. And as horrendous as the child molestation and the sex abuse scandal is, there's a parallel scandal involving money laundering and finances, and it implicates all kinds of powerful people. We already saw a crown prince of the United Kingdom have to step down, which is extraordinary. And hopefully he's willing to talk about what he's seen and what he's done, and help, blow the lid off of all of this. But, the fact that a lot of Republicans are down with this, I'm going to say that a couple of things are happening. They understand how toxic this whole situation is, and they don't want to be on the wrong side of it. And I also think that human beings in general are disgusted by this. Either Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't, this is not a partisan issue. This is a human decency issue. And I think that, Trump is tap dancing through a minefield on this. It is going to come out. And when it does, there's going to be hell to pay. And Andrea, thank you for mentioning, we had Adelita Grijalva on previously on this Zoom, and they're holding up her swearing in part because she's the key signatory on that discharge petition. And what that means simply is when the leadership in the House refuses to bring something to a vote, if they get a sufficient number of signatories, and Adelita Grijalva promises to be the 218th, that all of a sudden all these other Republicans are going to come off the sidelines, get behind it.
Mike,
and
Mike,
we're going to have quite a roller coaster ride. Ray, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've become very jaded over the course of these last 10 months, in that MAGA hypocrisy has no bounds. We've seen not just the Epstein files, but you look at the level of corruption that's going on with this administration that has been normalized, that would make Richard Nixon blush.
Indeed.
At what's going on. And it's been normalized. I mean, you can't keep up with it every day. So I hope that you are right, that when the files are released, that first of all, we'll get full files. But I go back to the first administration when everybody had high hopes for the Mueller investigation and other things. They have an extraordinary way of distraction and muffling the media. They essentially control the media now.
Yep.
From legacy media, with the mergers that they've approved and how they look at what they've done with CBS, Paramount, the merger there, what they're doing with TikTok. They've co-opted Meta, Google. So they're controlling those flows. But what they can't control, which is where I'm vesting my hope and focus, is affordability.
Mm-hmm.
And the affordability question, people have to go to the grocery store every week. And you can try to lie about it. You can put the press out. You can put all of the commentary out there you want. But when people go to the grocery store, they know that their check this week doesn't go as far as it did a year ago. And I think that that's the lie that they can't get beyond. They know what their rent is and that their rent is going up. They know their utility rates are going up, which is what was so important about the Public Service Commission races here. So I think we've got to continue to drive home, not saying forget about the Epstein files or anything like that, but I'm saying that people are hurting in terms of putting food on the table, having a roof over their heads, and staying warm in the wintertime. And we've got to continue to drive those points home each and every day. And I think that made a major difference. I know that Governor-elect Spanberger talked about it. That was the focus of the PSC races with these utility rates. I know it came up in other races. Mom Donnie talked about it a great deal about affordability and housing. When I bought my first house when I was 23, 24 years old. Those folks can't buy houses today. They can barely afford rent. It's a travesty in this country that young people cannot afford to own their own homes. So I think that we kind of stumbled into it, but we need to continue on that horse into 2026 on cost and affordability. That breaks through more than talking about inflation or anything else, because people go to the grocery store and can't afford to buy hamburger meat. So that's where we're going to be spending a lot of our time with the Democrats that we deal with and with other progressives that we deal with, is to say, focus on what's hurting people and respond to people's needs on the ground, because that's where the pain is right now.
Absolutely. If you can't afford to pay your rent or your mortgage, you can't afford to feed your kids, you're skipping meals so your kids can eat. That's a special kind of focus that people, and pain that people have to endure. And it's unnecessary in this day and age, in this country, that any child or parent should go to bed hungry, that anyone should have to, feel depressed and hopeless that they can't afford their bills. Steve, you want to get in real quick?
Yeah, am I unmuted? Yep. The game yesterday. I don't know if anybody's watching this football game, but Trump was up there trying to swear people in and they were booing him. And it's like, yeah, he just completely undermined the whole evolution of American democracy to this point. They've taken it out. You look at the preamble of the Constitution, they want to ensure domestic tranquility. They want to work for the common good, which is nothing of what this administration is doing.
Absolutely.
And then you have the 14th Amendment. You look at the 14th Amendment, Section 3 and Section 4. Section 3 is about removing any officer of the government for treason, insurrection, right? And 14.4 is questioning the debt. So what are they doing now? The whole basis of their thing in Congress is questioning the debt, which is completely against constitutional law. And I don't see how anybody can stand there in the halls of Congress and violate the Constitution and get away with it. Somebody, I don't know if there's somebody on the floor, whatever, but this is a point. The Constitution is there for a reason. And Pelosi let Mike Johnson take office. He was part of the fake elector scandal. Now Trump all of a sudden is like, pardon all of his buddies that got away with. Well, that doesn't excuse their sins. If they're insurrectionists, they're insurrectionists. I've never heard and haven't heard 2/3 of the Congress say that they weren't. And the fact that the Supreme Court is palling along with all this puts them in the same category as insurrectionists. You want to call me out on that? I'm right here. Thank you.
Any comments on Steve's constitutional expertise there? I'm seeing everybody calling him a hero, not calling him out, because I think he's right.
Thank you.
Well, we're getting close to the time to drift off and get back to our normal lives. But Andrea and Ray, you guys are absolutely amazing. You guys not only know what's going on, you make good things happen. And we're so pleased to hear from you whenever you can spare some time of your busy schedule to share with us. Do you have any closing thoughts as we get ready to get dinner on the East Coast and get on with our lives in the rest of the country?
I will have some interesting thoughts right after the beginning of the year. And I think they're going to be a little bit earth-shattering.
Ooh, I like that. That's
Great
a good
tease, great
teaser.
tease.
Andrea knows how to get your attention and keep it. So we're going to have you back in about a month and a half, and when it's you know 2026, and all the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah.
Ray, but any closing comments, any prognostications for next year in Georgia?
No, I've said what we need to focus on. Take this energy, momentum, and stay on affordability of the citizens. We need to know what their pain is and let them know that we're going to fight for them. That's why it was so disheartening to see the Senate members cave, because people were finally getting energized because they want to see people fight for them. That's what they're looking for. That's what they see. That's a throughput from Spanberger to Cheryl to Mondani to some of these other races. They want to see people fighting for them, and it's unfortunate that they gave that up.
And you guys, if you could say out loud the websites, how people can follow what you're doing and support what you're doing. Andrea's wonderful democracy centers for the Center for Common Ground. If you could give the website for that for people on the radio. And Ray, what you're up to as well, your website.
Yeah, it's CUFJ. Well, let me give you the right one, because one is C3 and one is C4. We're on the C3 space. I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. And there are people listening on the radio, so I'll read it out loud after you do that. Andrea?
Okay. All righty. Our donation site is givebutter.com/CFCG 25-26.
Okay. And can they find that on your regular website, a donation link?
No.
Uh-oh.
There's another
Okay.
donation site over there that works too.
We'll have to work with you on that. But yeah, Ray and Andrea are doing great work. It'd be great to have people pitch in, and that's Give Butter it's like Act Blue, but without all the partisanship. So it's givebutter.com/CFC, that's Center for Common Ground, CFC, G, and then 25-26, which I guess is for this cycle, the 2025-2026. So it's CFCG 25-26, and that's at the givebutter.com website. And Ray's is, okay, and also centerforcommonground.org, all one word. We've got our wonderful friend Tatanka Bricka. Tatanka, do you have something to get us wrapped up and on our way?
Yeah, I just want to say personally, but on behalf of everyone here and everyone in the country and around the world, you two, we know on this show, have been there and saved the Democratic Republic. This isn't the first time, over the last several elections. And the thing that is so admirable to me is when the times are tough, you are just plowing ahead. You're finding a way through. You're finding the way to get the money just to get the basic things done for people and the democracy centers and the year-round organizing. So it makes me proud to be a human being and to think that, decency and constitutionality, it's possible that that will win out in the end. I'm just motivated and enthused, and we all are, by your dedication. When times are tough, you're still plugging away. You keep your eyes on the prize and you keep going. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us.
And Tatanka, thank you so much for those incredibly wise words, as always. And I just want to emphasize, these electoral victories don't just happen. They don't happen on their own. They happen because smart, hardworking people get together and do the hard work. They roll up their sleeves. They don't do it for glory. They don't do it for money, certainly. They do it because their heart is in it. And people know that. And by being inspirational and working together, shoulder to shoulder with people who feel the same way, building common ground with the Center for Common Ground, and motivating people as Ray does in Georgia. You can do that in your own locality, in your own state. Be inspired by these wonderful people, and those help show you how to do it. If you want to start a democracy center in a neighborhood near you, Andrea can help you get started, and Ray can show you the way, the Georgia way. And we're about 1 minute from 7:20 in the East, and that's when we usually cut off. Steve Caruso, anything to say on our way out?
No, thanks everybody for showing up. Appreciate all of you. Love you very much. Have a good
And
weekend.
And we
we'll talk.
thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering this
Thank
meeting.
you, Myla. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, all of our guests, all of the wonderful participants we had, everybody who had questions that they spoke out loud or in the chat. And big thank you to Harvey Sluggo Wasserman, who convenes every single one of these. We decided we'd give him 1 day off because he was traveling, but he'll be back again next week. Same No Nukes time, same No Nukes channel.
Good.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
So good to
Thanks.
see everyone. Be well. And
Bye-bye.
we'll see you next week.
Si se puede.
See you.